Welcome to the Rocky Road Podcast, brought to you by Rockbusters, with your host, Dennis Wager. Dennis is a best-selling author and an expert in demolition, rock, and concrete breaking, as well as a professional blaster. He is also president of Rockbusters Incorporated, along with his son, Brian. On the podcast, you'll hear exciting stories of how these challenge types of rock and concrete jobs are done. You learn about the uses of expanding grout and explosive devices. But furthermore, you'll hear about some of the hurdles and struggles entrepreneurs and business owners have had along the way, how they got started, and how they broke through the obstacles and found the path to success. Along with that, some insight for young people and people wanting to get into the industry. So listen in. I hope you enjoy the show. Now, here is Dennis Wager.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'd like to welcome my good friend, Jack Peters from American Explosives. You might know Jack W. Peters from some of the shows such as Treasure Quest, which is on Discovery Channel, or Pirate Gold of Adak Island, which is on Netflix. Jack is also a well-known speaker and trainer. He trains in explosives, and I personally have taken his training course a couple of times, and I've learned a ton of stuff and had a ton of fun doing it. Welcome, Jack.
Well, thank you, Dennis. Wow, and congratulations on your new series.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a lot of fun putting this together.
Great. Honored to be here.
Yeah, thanks. So what's new in your explosives world now?
Well, as usual, I've been a busy guy. I'm actually relocated to Las Vegas, and I'm still doing television and training, but I'm working with a new company, not really a new company to me anyway. It's called Sanders Construction, Western States Drilling and Blasting, and we're a blasting company that's doing mining and construction and green projects all over a number of Western states and helping the company grow. So it's been a lot of fun. And I also have a new television project to tell you about later. You're going to get the first notification that from anyone
Awesome.
on your show. You're going to get the exclusives on that.
Awesome. I love it. That's so
Yeah.
great. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I've been doing a lot of videos and stuff myself. And I got to say, the camera's definitely got a bit of a bug going with me. It's at first it was a lot of like, oh my God, I can't do this. Even in the old days, I would never get up on stage and speak. But now I actually don't mind doing it at all. I quite like it. And I found through the camera, you can generate who you want to show up as.
You can actually. A little bit of practice and you certainly can. Yes.
Yeah. And then after you watch yourself a few times, then you think, oh, that's actually okay. I could tweak this, change that, speak a little louder, differently, move a little differently, and then just, show up as you want to show up. Mm-hmm. And nice. Anything like that come up for you?
Well, it just, it's not natural necessarily to be on camera or to record your voice. So like anything else, it just takes practice. The more you do it, the better you can get at it. And make small little changes. It's kind of like blasting, right? You make small little changes until you get dialed in and get it right.
Get it right. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of blasting, I saw a job that you did, which involved a big boulder on some railway tracks.
Yes. Moab, Utah. Yeah, that was quite a job. That was up on a hillside right across the street from Arches National Park. So that was an interesting adventure, but we got it done. It was a 35-foot boulder that came down in a rainstorm and crushed the railroad tracks.
Yeah. So that was like a flood or a storm that caused that rock slide?
Right. Yeah. And that's, pretty common anyway, but this just was like one of the largest boulders I've seen that fell, and probably the largest one I've ever shot.
Wow.
But after some complications, we got it done. It was one of these situations where we had to close Highway 191 that goes into Moab and had to close down the national park, and then also had issues with natural gas lines running right behind our job, and then dinosaur tracks right next to it. So we had a plethora of challenges to overcome, but I finally got it done, and they got the railroad tracks clear and open again, and another adventure in the books.
Wow, that's exciting. So how did you discover the best way to take that on? Like, how did you figure out, how to shoot that?
Well, a lot of times, when you're out in the field somewhere and you're doing kind of a rush job, you don't have a lot of time to plan or get everything you want. Sometimes you just have to utilize whatever materials are available. As you know, explosives can be difficult to get on a last minute or over a weekend situation. Maybe you just kind of get whatever somebody has, and it's probably old or something else, depending on, what sources are available. And in this case, we just had some old materials that were available, and we kind of did with what we had. We shot so much, we ran out of boosters and had to make boosters out of det cord, as an example. And
Okay.
so after a while, you learn to be innovative and resourceful.
Yeah.
And, it all worked out. We had the large boulder that we shot, but we also had a lot of secondary rock that we shot, as well as a kind of widowmaker rocks hanging out there waiting to fall again next time.
Yeah.
And so when the boosters ran out, we had plenty of ANFO, so we were braiding det cord to boost ANFO, and it actually worked pretty well.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I know you're a pro when it comes to improvising and making things happen. Brings me back to the memories of the training course where we did the training in Bend, Oregon.
Oh,
and
nice.
I think you stopped by the dollar store and bought like a little plastic funnel and took some C4, and then we were passing it around, pressing the C4 into the funnel to make a shape charge. So that was very, very cool. I always remember that, because it's just like, you can actually just make a shape charge.
Well, the interesting thing with explosives is you never stop learning. I mean, there's so much to learn, and every job usually has just enough variation to make it interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And, I learn new things all the time. I do a lot of different types of blasting, from, mining to demolition to construction to specialty jobs to television. And, I've been at it, for a while now, and I still learn things all the time. And so that's really the fun of the business, is it's, not only a science, but it's an art as well. And
Yeah,
so
exactly.
the idea, of course, is to break what you need to break, but not break what you're not supposed to break. That's the challenge, right?
Right. And that gets into like all the differences in fragmentation and kind of, relief, how that all takes a play. And also, taking the size that you want and not taking more than you want. And, obviously not putting any rocks through the neighbor's windows at the same time, right?
Yeah, that's a big one, because, we want to take our profit and keep it and not have to spend it on, attorneys and, insurance claims and broken parts and bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And that's easy to do. And so it's really, mitigating liability is really, a huge issue. And I think that also really separates, kind of the professional blasters from the cowboys that are just doing wild shots. We want to make sure that we're not causing any injury or any damage, and do everything the best we can and control any potential liability that might be there.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I think a lot of that is just what you said, just mitigating your risk. And that's a lot of the times where we come into play, is like when people can't blast with high explosives, but they still have to get the job done. How do they do it? Like whether it's concrete or rock. I mean, you were involved in the Lake Isabella Dam project, and you had a lot of instances down there where you couldn't blast, and you had some electrical components that you had to break. Was it concrete at the electrical area, or was that rock?
Well, we had granite bedrock there, and there was a lot of areas that we couldn't blast. I mean, we shot 3 million yards out of there, so we did a lot of blasting. But there was a lot of cases too where we had electrical transformers and also sensitive monitoring equipment for like earthquakes and other things that we couldn't blast around. So we used a lot of grout, and we finally got permission to use the 1.4 Royax charges for lots of oversize. We shoot a lot of patterns and have these monster boulders roll out, and we'd stack them all up and get to shoot them all at once. When we got enough of them all put together.
Yeah,
and
that
those
video
were
was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you're seeing like there's excuse me, so many different tools in the toolbox, so to speak, right? So it's like, you go from the different high explosives to like, okay, I'm going to use a low explosive, or I'm going to use a splitter, or I'm going to use grout. Um, so that's what I'm finding is there's a lot of knowledge involved in just, if you want to even label it as blasting. I mean, I'm kind of thinking now maybe it needs to be labeled like rock breaking or rock splitting more than just blasting.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's, tools in the toolbox is a good analogy because essentially the goal is to not underblast or not overblast. I mean, you don't want to like not break something enough, and you don't want to also throw chunks of rock all over the county. You want to apply just enough energy to do the right job. And so the idea is with enough practice and experience and training, you can pick the right product for the right job where you can effectively break something but not damage anything else, especially if you're dealing with, utility lines and gas lines and, residential or buildings or houses, windows, whatever, vehicles, whatever. There's always something in the way, I've found. I mean, we do a lot of stuff out in the desert, but there's still always something in the way of your blasting job that cannot be damaged. So that's really the trick and the challenge is how to apply the right amount of energy to get the job done.
Yeah, that's great. And what do you see as far as like the velocity of the explosive? How does that make a difference?
Well, the velocity is, what we call the VOD, the velocity of detonation, is explosive charges are measured just like you would measure the ballistics of a rifle bullet. You can actually measure the speed of it, and people may use feet for per second, or I use meters per second, where you actually determine how fast something can go or detonate. And as an example, if you're moving rock and earth and sand and dirt and that sort of thing, you can use a lower velocity material, even a low explosive. Or if you need to, split, trees in half or cut steel, then you're going to use a much higher velocity material. So the velocity essentially dictates what you can do with the material and what it's going to cut.
Yeah, that's great. So that's what I took away from the training was that with the C4 that we made the shape charge from, we as you know, put it on a, what was that, like a 3/4 inch thick steel plate or a 1 inch thick steel plate. It was a pretty thick steel plate. And it was just, the C4 in about a 4 inch pattern, like, 4 inch at the base, just set on there with a blasting cap in it. And I remember we got like a long ways away. And that was the one where you were, insisting everybody put their hard hat on and duck real good.
Oh yeah.
And man, the overblast air pressure from that was intense.
Feel it in your chest. Yeah. And so, on something like that, I mean, that's a specific tool for cutting steel. I mean, we're not going to use that for cutting rocks or, for mining or boulders or anything else. That has a very specific job for cutting steel. But, we typically, we'll do some of that in demolition. There's linear shape charges and other tools for cutting I-beams and when we're taking down towers or buildings or something like that. But a lot of what we do too is rock, and that, has its own tools involved. And I really like the 1.4 Royac stuff that you're selling because it works well. And it also doesn't have all the regulation that the 1.1 high explosives has. It's easier and cheaper to transport. It doesn't require, a full hazmat driver, depending on the quantity that you carry. And so there's some real advantages to that, and it works pretty good. I've got a pretty good video of shooting a row of about probably 80 yards of boulders with that product.
Well, that was quite a good video. Those boulders were pretty big too. They were probably a good 20, 25 feet around as well. And to see them all go at the same time was pretty impressive.
Well, there was another one we shot too with the low explosive sticks, and it was 22 feet. So I mean, it was a monster. We had to climb up on it with a ladder and load the top of the holes up and some on the side, and it shot really well too. So, usually you don't have boulders that big, but when you do, it's nice to know you can break them up enough to get them out of the way.
Yeah, what I really like about the Royax is that you don't have the fly rock issue because it just, as the charge goes off, it just dissipates. You don't have all the risk and the vibrations that you do. So also, if you're going to be working like in a subdivision or something where you're close to another house or structure, your vibrations are minimal. Like they're nothing compared to high explosives. So even though the cost per cartridge might be a little bit more, your cost overall for the job is quite often a lot less, and it's
Well,
a
it
lot more
may or may
convenient.
not be. You got to factor transportation. And the other
Right.
thing too is if you're on a job site, you also got to look at, how much of the job site do you need to shut down? I mean, there can still be some fly rock even with the low explosive product because as it gets concealed and fired, it actually kind of turns into a high explosive product. So it can still throw a little rock, but
It
it's
can.
more manageable. And the other thing too is you can also, throw a tarp over it or put some covering on it or something to keep the sound and vibration down a little bit. Even some Tyvek wrap or even just a tarp can actually greatly reduce all that, where you
Yeah.
don't have to move a lot of equipment out of the way or shut down, 2,000 feet of working environment around you.
Yeah, exactly. We've done that on job sites. If you're on a big construction site, you only have to close down a small area while you're blasting. Where if you're going to use high explosive, you're shutting down the whole entire job site. And that can be like sometimes, hundreds or, quite a few guys that are
Sure, sure.
standing by just waiting, which you're paying for.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
it's all money. I mean, if
it's,
your
yeah,
equipment and guys are standing there watching you, yeah, you're entertaining them, but it's someone's paying a lot of money
somebody's
per
paying the
hour to
bill
keep all
for
those
that
guys there.
entertainment. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then we also did a job too here in Kamloops at a big gold mine, 2,800 feet underground with Royax. And we were successfully able to take out a tunnel breakthrough, which was connecting a tunnel they were boring 2,800 feet underground into another main tunnel, which also housed all of the electrical lines. And we couldn't damage the electrical lines, so they chose to use Royax for that. So we went down and did that with the mine, and it was great. And actually, through that process, now they've approved Royax to be used anytime on ship, which is a big thing for them because they're also doing a lot of construction underground. They're doing mine extensions and expansions to the mine, and they're only allowed to blast in between shifts. So the mine, as most mines, run 24 hours, but they only blast in between shift when there's a shift change. So everything
Right.
is drilled and loaded during the shift, but not fired. And then as the shifts change, they take a break and fire the shots.
Yep.
But then if you're doing like a little bit, say you have a hang up or you have a bit of something you got to get out of the way for new construction, you're always waiting. Well, so now they're able to use the Royax and just fire at any time. So that's a big advantage for them.
Oh, good. Yeah, and there's nothing like working underground. I mean, that's a whole nother animal there. I think it's pretty neat. I mean, it's not for everybody,
Yeah.
but it's a unique environment, and it's also climate controlled. So if you're working and it's snowing outside or 110 degrees, it's always like a perfect 60 degrees underground. So it has
Yeah.
its advantages.
It's always very dark though.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and last time I talked with you, you were like taking a helicopter into the Grand Canyon for a
Yeah.
specialty blasting job. That sounded pretty good.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was a lot of fun. I got to stay at the Phantom Ranch at the Rangers bunkhouse down there at the bottom
Okay.
of the canyon, and that was a trenching job. They have a wastewater treatment plant there that looks after the campsite, the Bright Angel campsite, and also the Phantom Ranch. But the treatment plant is over 100 years old, and it's at its capacity. It's kind of
Hmm.
lived its life, so to speak, right? So now they're doing a bunch of upgrades to the treatment plant, and they needed to put in some trenching. And they discovered like it's an archaeology. It's one of those sites.
Yes.
It's got some archaeology in there.
So there could be some artifacts there. There could be some, some artifacts that you certainly don't want to damage, right? So
Exactly.
that
So we worked.
requires an extra
Yeah,
element of care.
it was. So we worked alongside of an archaeologist from
Uh-huh.
the state park, and there was no blasting allowed. So we were using expanding grout. We used Nexpro in the bottom of the canyon, and the cool part about it was like everything that goes down to the bottom of the canyon has to be, hiked in, backpacked, or used the donkeys, or flown in with a helicopter.
Right.
So in our case, everything got flown in with a helicopter. So we brought in all the grout, like a full pallet of grout, and all the drills, etc., by helicopter, and set up. We even flew in like a mini excavator. We had a 30 size excavator that we flew in, and a Bobcat, air compressor, even a screening plant we flew in. So as the trenches were being dug out, the rock or the gravel could be screened and reused.
What a job. That's great.
Yeah, no, it was great. So I worked with those guys. It was GSE Construction out of California.
Uh-huh.
They were great. I went down there, I worked with them, showed them how to use it. We used the grout and all the boulders that were oversized. We just put them aside and drilled them and poured them. But it was a really cool experience. Like, you wake up in the morning, and it's not like a normal morning you'd wake up, because you're so far down in the hole. You're like, I think it's about 7 kilometers or something like that down in the canyon. So in the morning, when the sun comes up, it doesn't come up at like 7 a.m. It comes up, but you don't see it until like 10:30. So it's quite cold down there until 10:30. Then boom, it's warm. And then at 3 o'clock, it's the reverse. It just the sun goes away and it shuts off and it's cold.
Well, and that's the nice thing with this business, is you don't know where it's going to take you next. I mean, that's really part of the enjoyment of the blasting industry, is that, you could be on a plane somewhere, on a helicopter somewhere, on the back of a donkey somewhere, and you don't know where you're going to go next.
You don't. That's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed that, and then all the great people I've got to work with as well. I've done a lot of training, the same as you, and I've trained some of the people from the universities, the FBI. I've worked with the bomb squad in New York. It's the U.S. Army. I've done training with a lot of the top blasters in the U.S. Army. We've done research with the Army for underwater blasting with Royex.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's come a long way, and the industry is evolving, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, what I enjoy about it is that not only the industry's evolving now, things like this where we're able to do podcasts and TV shows and stuff like that just kind of bring like an element of fun to it, and lets people see it more, because it is kind of a
Indeed.
behind the scenes sort of thing. It's not like everybody's going to go watch a blast, right?
Right, that's true. Yeah, but they get a little insight to how we do our job.
Yeah. Totally. So what is your role as far as the safety officer now that you're taking on with Sanders?
Well, I really enjoy it, and that's really an important element when it comes to blasting, right? Or even working in general, is that you've got to balance safety with production and quality, and so any type of injury or accident is just so negative on a company, on the individuals, on the employees, and expensive. What we're trying to do is everything we can to not only deal with, an accident if it happens, but actually be proactive and prevent accidents and injuries. And that's possible to do. I mean, there's enough research now that we can get a pretty good understanding of how and why accidents happened, and we can get ahead of them to actually prevent them. So what I want to do is be proactive and actually work on preventing accidents and injuries altogether. And there's been enough research that we know what causes accidents and injuries, so we can actually prevent them. The first thing is to ask questions. How can we do something better? How can we do something safer? The second thing is to work in teams. If working in a high-performance team has a magnifying effect on safety, because everyone you work with watches out for each other. And the third thing is understanding triggers that may cause accidents and injuries. I'll give you an example, like when we're really fatigued, we're tired, or maybe we're too hot, we're too cold with extreme weather conditions. Maybe we don't understand the job fully. There's a lot of different triggers that can cause accidents and injuries or lead up to them. And if we can recognize those, that's also an important factor.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know that even just from your training there, with working in teams or groups, it takes on a whole new feeling to it. Like you do have each other's backs, and somebody else is kind of watching over your shoulders with your best interests in mind. And,
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only is it more efficient and effective, but it's actually safer as well. So it's a win-win. Plus, not only that, for people to work, it's better to work in that type of environment than in some type of a dysfunctional work group or something. You want to work in a high-performance team.
Absolutely. So speaking of high performance, what great advice do you have for any young people wanting to get into the blasting industry and have blaster on their career path?
Well, good question. And, now is actually a really good time. There's a lot of construction projects going on, and there's also a lot of mining and demolition as well as other projects. So it's a good time to be a blaster. And, there are some training opportunities. There's also internships where someone can start off maybe in general labor where they assist a blast team. And then as they learn the process and learn the materials and how it's all done, they can move up and become a blaster. And then after enough years of that, they can become what we call a blaster in charge. That's someone that manages a blast operation. But, now again is a great time to be into the industry. We're always hiring people. We're working on a variety of different projects, including some unique, even green projects where we're putting in, helping out with solar farms and windmill farms from California to Texas. So now's a great time. If you like that type of career, you can actually, make pretty good money without having extensive college loans and so forth. You can learn from a company that can hire you. And, it's a pretty good business. It's been very, very good to me and also to you, it looks like, Dennis, right?
It has. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Can't complain at all. But,
the other thing, too, is it's fun. I mean,
it is a lot of fun.
Once you be in the business and you get to do different types of blasting and different types of jobs, you really enjoy being out and working with people and having those types of challenges.
Right, exactly. And then the one thing too is that you can never get rid of the adrenaline rush of pressing that button.
That's right. There is no cure. You just have to keep working.
You just have to. It's like in front of the camera. It's like you want to press the button and you want to talk in front of the camera. It's kind of like your lifelong ambitions.
Speaking of camera, I've got to tell you, you're getting a premiere notice here. I have a new television show coming out sometime, maybe June, July of 2023. It is a new series that's going to be on the History Channel called Beyond Skinwalker Ranch. So look out for that. You'll see me on an episode doing some very exciting blasting work.
Cool. Well, that's very exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing that. But I think that's our time. And I just want to say thanks very much for being on the show, Jack. That was great. Great to catch up with you and talk about all this stuff. It's very, very interesting for me. And I hope our listeners also find it fun to listen to as well.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Dennis.
Yeah, you bet. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you would like to be a guest on a future episode and tell us your story, visit our website at www.rockbusters.com. If you have a project and would like to learn more about our products, or if you're interested in partnering with us and becoming a distributor, give us a call. Thanks again. We appreciate your support.